Hi, gents. Longtime listener, first time asker. I am a LCC first officer based in the Midwest with the goal of getting on with a legacy and preferably Delta. I have 1,700 hours total time, 650 hours, part 121 on the A320, and fly about 70 hours a month. Delta's preferred hiring mins are 2,500 total time and 1,000 hours turbine multi-engine time, not PIC necessarily, he says. I will have the opportunity to upgrade soon and wonder if I should pursue it or not. At my airline, being the lowest captain in seniority on reserve hardly provides the opportunity to fly. I'd estimate maybe 8 to 20 hours per month, and I will not move up in seniority anytime soon. Do I stay in FO and fly as much as I can to meet the 2,500 min for Delta, or upgrade, which also looks good on the resume, but then hardly fly and spend years working my way towards 2,500 total time? Ironically, I asked a Delta recruiter this exact question, and they did not give me any actionable advice. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on how valuable turbine PIC time is. Keep up the good work, gentlemen. Love the show. It slaps, and have to thank you because your episodes had a huge impact, motivating me to quit my old career and make the jump to aviation.
So, number one, he asked a really good question. And number two, the reason the recruiters probably didn't answer it is because that general advice everyone gives over turbine PIC time, right, is not actually really good advice. So let's talk about kind of what the pros and cons of this are. So he has two issues that he's going to run into simultaneously. Number one, not meeting the 2,500 hours total time, which if he doesn't meet the 2,500 hours total time, system's not going to accept him. So that's number one. Number two, if he's flying 8 hours per month, he's not going to hit 100 hours in a year. So he's going to get a double whammy, right? Not building towards that not hitting that 2,500, and then basically, I doubt he'll come in under 100 hours a year. But if it's questionable, you could run into an issue pretty quick. Okay, so becoming a captain is great. Turbine PIC time is great, but when you're that low time, you've got to think about how many. We don't know what's going to happen with Spirit, right? Spirit could come out of this a smaller, more aggressive airline. But if they don't, think about how many Airbus captains you have out on the street with thousands of hours of Airbus PIC time. Your 96 hours of Airbus PIC time in the past year is not going to be super valuable, nor is it going to distinguish you. So right now, and I want to be clear, right? What day is today? Today's January 5th that we're recording this. This advice could change in a month or 2 months or 3 months as the environment changes. This is why when we're working with folks, we're checking in with them constantly, right? We set a strategy, we move in a direction, but we constantly are adjusting that based on what's happening in the market. But based on today, right? Sunday, January 5th, 2025, I would stick as the SIC and I would continue to build a flight time. When you hit the 2,500 hours, then I would take a look back at, okay, so if I held captain, even if I was on reserve, how much could I realistically fly? Could I get it to 30, 40, 50 hours a month? And then I would make my decision based on that. But I wouldn't hit myself right now, today, with a double whammy of I'm not progressing towards that 2,500. I mean, it'd be like 9 years. I know he's not only going to fly 100 hours a year for 9 years, but it's almost like 9 years to get to that 2,500. Oh, and by the way, you're hitting the bare minimum of flight time per month, which, given how gun shy everybody is on check ride failures, you're not exactly going to be excited about that.
Not to mention, hey, you have 1,700 hours total time, and you've been in a legacy for a little while, or I mean, a low cost carrier for a while. Newsflash: there's a reason why you can hold captain. Nobody wants that. Like, that's gonna be your quality of life is going to be absolutely awful. And there's a reason why, why that exists.
Also, though, it says not married, no kids. So
yeah,
that's easier to swallow that.
And then all he's got to add is, and not planning on doing either of those soon.
Yeah.
Well, he does say, but it's funny because the second line does say getting married soon, kids in a couple years.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, go grind. Is there even, I just don't know the landscape of the low cost carriers right now. And I don't know if any of us would know, like, is there opportunities to fly a lot? Like, can you pick up time? Can you be really aggressive, or has the flying come down so much?
So let's talk about that real quick, because this exists outside low cost carriers, right? So most people call something and go, I'll do anything I need to get a job. And I will point to jobs and they go, I'm not going to do that. And you're like, well, why not? Well, I gotta move to Wyoming or Montana. And you're like, no, I know it's cold in the winter there. Yeah, I don't know if that's gonna work for me, right? So everyone thinks, hey, look, I'll do whatever I need to get a job. But when the reality sets in of like, hey, here's the opportunity in front of you, in order to advance, it's an inverse relationship. If you want to advance very quickly, just take your quality of life and throw it into the toilet, right? If you want to maintain a high quality of life, you're going to slow down that advancement. It's a pretty straightforward formula. Now there is a point in your career where that changes, right? But you've already suffered so much that it doesn't matter at that, right? You're getting to that, whatever, 8,000, 10,000, 15,000 hour point where you're like, okay, I've got enough different experience and enough different airplane types and enough different segments of the industry. I've got a lot of friends. We've been through ups and downs together. We've helped each other, right? Where, yes, you don't necessarily have to take as big of a hit to your quality of life as, to get that advancement or so on and so forth. But for the people that we're talking to that are looking to advance earlier on in their career, usually that advancement is going to come at a pretty substantial cost to either money or time. There's no way to do it comfortably and
Max,
fast.
what's the inspirational line you had for us this morning that you sent me?
Everybody likes the view. Nobody likes the climb.
That is, look, and the reality is, because I don't want to be in that like back in my day BS. None of us friggin' liked it when we were doing it either. It wasn't like I was like, oh, great character building. I just didn't have another choice, right? Or my other choice was so bad that's what. So this isn't like.
How dare you shame your time with Chuck Colgan in the Saab 340? That was a great time. You take your words back.
When I went to Colgan, I remember having actually with a guy who's on my team at Raven. We've known each other for 25 years. I remember having conversations with him, and I was like, the only reason I'm going here is because it's such a horrible place to be that I can upgrade quick because everyone's leaving. That's why I went there. Like I knew what I was getting into, but it was one of those. And when I say the schedule was horrible, you were based in places that nobody wanted to live. Like it was when you put the whole picture together, it was just not great. And so when I talk to people now, it's about balancing that out. But we didn't have Instagram when we were doing this. Nobody was showing you pictures of a perfect life going, hey, look, you can have 17 days off a month and make six figures and use your non-rev benefits on your day off to go camp in the mountains. Like we knew it sucked. I mean, they're being bombarded with different information than we were.
Well, I think the difference too is what I've heard from other people too is that a lot of the people in the last few years that have started to get into aviation said, hey, I think it's a good idea to become a pilot. They've done it a lot because they've seen the rapid progression, how quickly you can get to the top and make a good living and have a lot of days off. And it wasn't necessary for the love of flying, where I think there's a lot of people previously that were truly passionate about aviation. That's why they wanted to become pilots, because the climb was rough, dude. And like you said, like going to Colgan and when we flew out of the regionals out of Chicago and commuted and all this, like it sucked. There was a lot that sucked, but at the end of the day, like I was still flying a jet around, and that was I loved that. Like there was that motivation deep inside of you that pushed through a lot of the suck to be able to do that. And I'm not sure as many people have that now. So when things are ripping, it's really not of consequence. But when things slow down and you have to go, load cargo in Gillette, Wyoming in January. To go fly at some clapped out Beach 99 in the ice and, fly approaches single pilot, like that might not be quite as attractive as it would have been if you were super passionate about what you were doing. Because I've like even flown with captains that are like, yeah, some of these new people, like they look around, they don't even know, like look at an airport. They have no idea what kind of airplane that is. Like they're just not, it's just not a thing. Like they're just not into it. They're like, I'm here for a very specific reason and goal, and that's to make money and have time off, and because it seemed like a pretty good thing to do at the time.
Yeah, so there are certainly people that fit into that category, but what I find is the more kind of pervasive is it's about expectations. So if I put you in a car right? And you know the person driving the car is about to slam on the brakes. You have an expectation that that's going to happen, and you can brace yourself. But if I put you in a car and you're asleep, right? And I slam on the brakes, your face is going into the windshield because you weren't expecting that. You weren't braced for it. So these folks came into the industry and everything was up and to the right, right? And so the expectation was, hey, look, if I do these things, if I follow these rules, if I play by this playbook, XYZ is going to happen. Most people go into that knowing full well there's a chance that I'm not going to get 100% of that to work. What they weren't prepared for is 15% of it working. Right? So the change has been so rapid that it's disorienting. And now what I find is people are calling going, what am I doing wrong? Or what did I do wrong? And it's not so much about what did you do wrong. It's, hey, the playbook you were given, right? You were given a playbook for a football game. You're now on a soccer field. That playbook, great playbook in the NFL, but we're playing soccer right now. And so none of that applies.
Very little scoring.
Exactly, right? And so that's actually what's hitting them. The ones that really didn't want to be a pilot, that wanted to get in because they thought it was going to be a lot of money for not a lot of work, they're just going to wash out and leave the industry. Like they won't even see a FI. And that's fine. But there's a much larger segment of people that are going, they keep flipping through the playbook going, maybe I'm just reading the play wrong. And you're like, no. Those are football plays. We're on a soccer field right now. And they're both grass. They both have metal poles at the end of them. They both have paint every couple of yards. I don't know how soccer works, or football for my European friends. So it's disorienting, and they're trying to figure out, where am I at on the map right now, and how do I pick up the pieces and move forward?
Yeah, I guess
that's
it's
the hard part.
It's a multifaceted thing
Yeah.
too. I mean, it's generational too, to an extent. You know, there's a lot of things.
Well, the other thing too, we talked about, when you're a student, who is your mentor? Your mentor is your flight instructor. Okay.
Yes.
You saw your flight instructor go, probably, if you got into this a year or two ago, you watched your flight instructor at the best possible time to be a flight instructor, where it was boom, 1500, boom, regional, boom.
Yeah.
Me.
You mean one of your many instructors that
Yeah,
you
right.
had
You
at the
just
time.
saw this, all the people ahead of you, and
It
you're
was
like, oh,
people
okay,
that
there's
went
the
into
place.
People that went into the stock market during coronavirus.
Yeah,
Like, oh my
yeah.
God, they made
This is so
3,000%.
easy.
Yeah, you're right. They were lucky. I mean,
Yeah, so it was just tough because you saw the people directly ahead of you, and now that's a different path. So
I just want to pause for a second, though, because I got to point out the fact that James is basically an artist, and his canvas is the use of his metaphors. It's really inspiring sometimes.
Yeah.
His ability to illustrate a point through the use of a well-crafted metaphor
Mhm.
is really uncanny. I must congratulate you, James.
Yeah,
I appreciate that.
I mean,
It doesn't
something
go well
else.
at home, just in case you wonder.
yeah, I bet. Eileen,
I'd
this
like to
dinner,
hear
let me just
your wife.
explain. Yeah,
Yeah.
James, why haven't you taken the trash out yet?
Well, let me.
Eileen. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. The other thing to remember with folks right now, it's getting shoved in their face that everybody else is successful and they're not. I mean, if you go on social media, even if that person's life sucks, they're lying and making it look like it's beautiful. And it's just getting shoved in your face constantly. Hey, you're not successful. And that makes it difficult as well.
Yeah. And dude, I tell you, the people that I feel for are some of the military folks that are coming out of the military, and they've been in for a good chunk of time, 10 years minimum, right? And so they're older, and they're coming in, they're getting in line behind people that got hired at a certain time that were so much younger than them that are never going to get out of their way via
That is correct.
retirement. And that is a tough place to be. Like, I would be pissed if I got hired later behind people that were substantially younger than me. I'd be like, these guys, like, they're the plug. They're never going to move.
So it's interesting because I've done a couple of coaching sessions about that this week, and I haven't found people to necessarily be pissed, but they are afraid. because they're looking at it like, okay, I'm making a decision. There's only 3 legacy airlines, right? Um, 4 if you count Southwest in that or not. It depends on who you're talking to, right? And
Yeah.
what I mean by that is legacy. There's 3 legacy internationals,
Sure.
4 legacy if you count Southwest in terms of just size and
Size. Yeah, it depends on how you
percentage.
quantify it. Right?
Okay. So people know, or I think most people have accepted at this point, you're probably not jumping legacy to legacy to legacy. That idea of like,
Anymore.
yeah, people that when they look in their closet, they have a Delta uniform, a United uniform, and an American uniform, and they were all issued within 4 months of each other, right? Those days are pretty well and done. And so what people are concerned about is if they have 2 job offers right now. If they have one, it's straightforward. You're just going to go to whoever offers you the job. But let's say you have American and Delta, or you have United and Delta, or you have United and American. Now they're looking at it as like, okay, whatever I choose, I don't have the chance to go back. I don't have the chance to call them back and go, hey guys, oopsies,
No
I
do-overs.
really want to go
Yeah.
here. Yeah. And so there's a lot of pressure because the other difference with the military folks is they're not thinking about having kids. Most of them already have kids. They're not thinking about buying a house. They have 1, maybe 2 of them because they've done moves, right? They're not thinking about getting married, right? They're probably already married. That's not 100% of the case, right?
Sure.
But the consequence of their decision does not just impact them. It impacts a husband or a wife. It impacts 1 or 2 children. It impacts whether or not they can live near in-laws or not, whether they have childcare. Like, there's pretty substantial impacts to them. And so fear typically is the overwhelming emotion that they're experiencing. And the fear is, don't F it up. So
Yeah.
now a 20-something-year-old is just worried they're not progressing fast enough.